everyone doing here on a Sunday morning pop-up live here from NBT Studios? It's a Sunday morning pop-up live. We are going to continue our exploration of the hard truths of becoming a no boring trainer. In other words, what are the things we need to do to elevate our training? How do we plan, build, and deliver training that actually works, that gets results, not yawns? And how do we plan, build, and deliver training that moves the business forwards, that actually helps people grow, actually helps drive alignment, energy, and excitement, and helps impact those top line metrics? That's what we're talking about here in BT Nation. Great to see everyone today. So we are working our way through the hard truths of becoming a no boring trainer. And last NBT Live, we covered the first four. Today, we're going to cover numbers 5 through 8. We're just going to get through 4 more today. All of these hard truths, if you're interested, you can expand upon in a 60-page PDF called The Hard Truths of Becoming a No Boring Trainer. It's 60 pages, 20 hard truths, 15 infographics, and packed full of practical tips born from 10,000 hours plus of designing, developing, delivering, planning, building, and delivering corporate training, programs, workshops, sessions, you name it. I've done it. Learn from me, learn from my mistakes mostly, so that you can elevate your training. So we're going to dive into the hard truths of becoming a no boring trainer. Why so many people are thrown into doing and delivering corporate training. You're a subject matter expert. You have just been there the longest. You're the highest performing person on the team. You've had some level of success. You've outlasted everyone else, whatever. And as a consequence of that, somebody taps you on the shoulder and says, "Hey, can you put together a training?" And next thing you know, you're in front of a room of 20 people, and they're bored, and you're bored, and it's awful. So how do you avoid all that? How do you sidestep boring and ineffective training? So great to see everyone here. It's a beautiful day here in southern Mississippi, home of NBT Studios. It is, I don't know the temperature, maybe 50-ish degrees Fahrenheit, bright sunny day. Great, excuse me, great to have everyone out there while I cough to death on my coffee. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, NBT Nation. All right, let's dive in. The hard truths of becoming a no boring trainer. Hard truths number 5 through 8. We're going to tackle those. Hard truth number 5. Layered learning provides really outstanding outcomes. Layered learning really is a fantastic approach, but your stakeholders are going to want a magic wand. Let's start to unpack that. What is layered learning? Layered learning, simply put, is an approach to learning where you have learning layered throughout the organization. So as an example, we'll just use sales training as the example. I've done a lot of sales training over the years, so we'll use that as an example. You, of course, have your classroom program. When somebody gets onboarded, you're starting to talk a little bit about sales process and your products and services and your company's mission, vision, values, etc. Then you have some sort of job skills training program. Even if you're hiring experienced, talented salespeople, just spending even a couple days to give them the best practices and the ins and outs of how sales is conducted at your organization, how your organization deals with industry issues and competitive situations, whatever, is worthwhile. Now, if you're hiring maybe young kids right out of college, young adults right out of college, that 2-day program may be a 2-week or 2-month program, whatever. But at the end of the day, you have a formal sort of job skills classroom-based training. You might have some virtual sessions, maybe 1 hour. Maybe it's a follow-up to that general job skills type training. Maybe it's a standalone topic that you do every quarter because it comes up so frequently. Overcoming objections, negotiating prices, visiting the C-suite, whatever. And now you're doing that session. Then you have, of course, e-learning modules about very specific skills. You have micro learning topics where maybe you have a shared folder with 4 or 5 different explainer videos. Here's how you fill out your expense reports. Here's how you present this product. Here's how you navigate this objection to this service. Here is how you fill out the form for signing somebody up for this program, whatever. And then, of course, you have standalone infographics that are used throughout all these different programs. And maybe you have a once a quarter podcast where you bring all your top performers together and have a roundtable on a variety of different discussions. Maybe your stand up meeting, whether that's every day or once or twice a week, has a component for training, even just a couple minutes. So, a lot of words to say. That's the layered learning approach. You're hitting on a whole bunch of topics in a whole bunch of different ways at a whole bunch of different scales, from like a 30-second mention in a meeting to a 4-day workshop, or a 4-week program, and everywhere in between. All sorts of different delivery methods. Some are coming from a training team, some are coming from the field managers, whatever. That's layered learning. Your your stakeholders are going to want a magic wand. And here's why they want that. One, they don't understand everything I just described to you. Two, and that's not a knock on them. It's just it's an approach that's not taught in manager school or leadership school. Two, there is an organizational impact from doing that. There's the time to set all that up, the cost to set all that up. You might have to buy a LMS or an authoring tool, or you're going to have to pay somebody to set it up. You might have to bring somebody in like me to help you set it up. Whatever. It doesn't have to be costly or complicated or cumbersome, but there is a cost. There's the time impact, both to set it up and then for people to access that information, use that information, whether it's 3 minutes in a meeting or 3 weeks in a workshop. Now they're not doing their day job. And as trainers, we have to be aware of that. There is an impact on operations when you pull people offline. They're not going to want that because their job is to conduct operations. And so when you're taking people away from operations to do training, it's always that delicate dance of what's the right solution that's going to get the right outcome from a training perspective, but not shut down operations, because we can't do that either. So they're going to want that. They're going to want a magic wand because they don't understand that a lot of times learning takes time, learning takes repetition. Sometimes bad habits take time to get resolved. They don't quite connect the dots that, hey, yeah, I can train them today. That's great. And I can do the world's greatest job at training. Great. If the field level manager doesn't check in and have some accountability and some coaching and help reinforce the training that I did, it's going to fall flat. And they don't really stop and think about that. Not because they're bad people, they just don't understand training completely. So lots and lots of words to say. The hard truth of becoming no boring trainer is understanding all this as a trainer. And a lot of times what happens, especially if you don't spend a lot of time training, is somebody says, hey, we need a training. You put your head down. You start putting together a whiz-bang training thing, session, program, workshop, explainer video, whatever. But there's that tendency to then the trainer also starts to pretend like it's a magic wand. I'll just do this one thing and all of our problems will be solved. If I just put out this one explainer video, the form to get somebody subscribed to the program will always be filled out completely. And it just doesn't work that way. That's just not how humans learn. It's not how organizations operate. So if you're wanting to get an impact from your training, you got to navigate all this, and you got to work together with your stakeholders. And it's a give and a take, and it's a process. And you got to find out the right balance for you and your organization, your situation, your budget, your number of teams. If you're a late stage startup, for example, you probably don't have a lot of people laying around who can set all this up. And frankly, probably not a lot of time. So you just sort of pick and choose, okay, I'm going to do this today, and just start chipping away at it. So understanding that layered learning is really the way to go if you want to get an outcome on the business, if you want to move the dial on metrics that matter, performance, revenue, profit, talent retention, net promoter score. You got to have that layered learning approach. Just doing a one and done training, magic wand, whoop, now we're good forever till the end of time. It really doesn't work. We know that as professional full-time trainers. But if you only train once in a while, or you're in a leadership position who's not familiar with training, you want that magic wand. So navigating that, partnering, educating, finding those opportunities to support the stakeholders and working together in a partnership. Of course, as trainers, we want to come in and have a 9-week program for everything because cool. But that's not the right solution for the business. And you got to find that right solution. So understand, layered learning works great. Your shareholders want a magic wand. That's hard truth number 5. Once you learn how to navigate that, then you can start building out these layers over time. And next thing you know, you get, make this a standalone episode. It's February of 2026. If you take a layered learning approach and start partnering with your stakeholders, you'll be shocked when you get to February of 2027 and look back of how much you got done. So there you have it. Hard truth number 5. All right, NBT Nation, we're kicking along here. We are kicking along. Let's see if I can get this to work here today. We are kicking along here on a beautiful Sunday morning from NBT Studios. Hard truth number 6. Training is not the solution to every problem. Solution is not the training to every problem. And oftentimes, as younger trainers or somebody who maybe you're a subject matter expert and you get asked, hey, we need a training on whatever, the natural inclination is to start building a training. And I'm here to tell you, after 10,000 hours way plus building, planning, building, and designing training, training is not always the right move. It really isn't. You got to look at the people, the process, and the systems first. Do you have the right people in place? Are they following the policies, practices, and norms of the organization? If not, that's a people problem. And training is not usually, it could be part of helping a people problem. But if it's a behavioral or a disciplinary issue, training is a horrible solution for that. So think about, is it a people problem? Think about processes. I'm always on here, going on about you cannot train a process that doesn't exist or is unclear or is broken or whatever. Well, training is not the right solution in that case. Maybe even systems. If people don't have the right systems in place, the hardware, the software, the equipment, the general functioning of the organization, the types of departments and job roles that are needed for them to be successful and for them to really focus on their core competencies towards meeting the business objectives. If that's not all dialed in, training ain't going to unravel that. If people don't have the right computer, I could train them till the cows come home. They can't do their job. So people, process, systems, look at that first. Look at the data. The data is part of, the planning process. When you're designing or planning out a training, you should be looking at the data of what's the root cause, what's really going on here. And this gets back to hard truth number 4. You got to get input from around the firm and be a detective. Well, training is not the solution for everything. And as you look around the firm and become a detective and gather data, you might find this ain't a training problem. It's not training is not the solution to the outcome that we want to achieve. You could even look at training is not the solution to every problem in terms of the business strategy itself. Maybe the strategy is not really dialed in yet for the overarching business, the overarching direction of the firm or the team or the division or whatever. If that strategy is not in place, again, training is really not going to be appropriate. Maybe that strategy is not really bought into or clear to the team. We'll put some energy into getting the strategy aligned and clear and bought in long before you worry about training. So that's what I mean when I say training is not the solution to every problem. You got to get all the people, process, and systems dialed in first. You got to have the overarching strategy. Is that strategy aligned? Is everybody bought into it? Now, from the that's from the business side of things, the leadership side of things. From the trainer side of things, training is not the solution to everything. Not only in those cases, and that's where it gets uncomfortable because the stakeholder will say, hey, we need a training. And as you dig into it, you realize this is a process problem. You got to report that back. And that can get dicey sometimes, a little sticky. But you also have to think about, is training the right way to go? We talked about in hard truth number 5 that there is an operational impact to pulling people offline, and we have to be cognizant of that. Are we going to get a return on this training that is better or more than the cost of pulling somebody offline and them not doing their job? That's a question we should ask ourselves as trainers. And if the answer is no, you should not be pulling them offline into a classroom. End of story. I think sometimes as trainers, we want to default to whatever delivery method we're most comfortable with. If we love to do e-learning modules and build those all day long, that's the hammer to every nail we see. If we love in-person classroom sessions, that becomes the go-to solution for everything. And as trainers, we should be careful. Not every training is not the solution to every problem, and you don't want to have an undue cost on the organization. Sometimes you got to send an email. Why are we having a fancy schmancy big training program when an email with some links to a shared folder with a couple explainer videos and a how-to graphic, a PDF or something would solve the problem? So hard truth number 6, training is not the solution to every problem, both on the business side of the equation and the trainer side. All right, NBT Nation, we're motoring through on a Sunday morning live, NBT Live. If you're watching along, leave me a message in the chat. Have you ever sat through a horrible, awful, miserable, boring corporate training? Or if you're the leader of an organization, do you have that gnawing feeling that the training in your firm is not moving the dial on those top line metrics? If that's the case, drop me a message down in the chat. Keep it anonymous, keep it broad, not trying to out anybody. But if you feel like, something ain't adding up, let me know. Or if you've sat through a horrible, awful, miserable, boring training, leave me a chat in the chat feed. So there you go. All right. Hard truth number 7. Hard truth number 7, know your audience. Know your audience. And this is kind of a basic level one for the trainers out there. You're a subject matter expert. You don't do training very often. Somebody taps you on the shoulder, says, hey, we need to do a training. Okay, cool. And here's the list of people that need to be trained. Great. Who are they? What's their job role? What's their experience? Why have they been included in this group? Are they in the group because they're brand new and they need to learn this thing? Are they in the group because there's this process the process is dialed in, but people are not following it? Well, you better know that those people, we go back to the last hard truth, if they're not following the process, this could be a people issue. Has that all been sorted out? If the answer is yes, you need to know that because now it is time for training. Now the training is appropriate. Are they in the room because they are the longtime team member who just kind of refuses to get with the program? They need a little bit of a refresher. They've developed some bad habits. Not bad people. They're not disruptive. They just have developed some bad habits. It's time for a little bit of a refresher. You know what I mean? Know your audience. What are they expecting to get out of this session? What are they hoping to learn? You can do that before the session or workshop even begins. with surveys and pre-meeting chat channels where you're doing polls and asking for feedback in the run-up to your training session. You could do that with an attendee form that they fill out ahead of time, so you get a good snapshot of everybody that's in the room. You could do it through some dialogue at the beginning of the session as part of your housekeeping. You definitely need to be doing it during your planning for the session. You don't want to walk into a room not knowing, just winging it. No real understanding of the background of your audience. Really dig into that. That's one that's, like I said, it's kind of that core part of training 101, but I think it gets skipped over. And it can get skipped over from the leadership side of things too. So when the leadership is sitting back saying, hey, why is this team underperforming? All of a sudden that team might, if that leader has trainers in the organization and that team over there is not doing so great, that leader might say, hey, trainers, go help that team. Part of knowing your audience is knowing the why of why you've been tasked. And then we get back to hard truth number 6. It may not be a training problem. You got to look at people, process, and system first. Then it might become a training problem. So again, know your audience. Really understand it. You can say there's some overlap here with getting input and being a detective around the firm, which is hard truth number 4. But I think it's really different. Getting input and being a detective does apply to the planning of a session, but it's also that sort of general intelligence, building a network, staying in touch with the organization on a day-to-day basis and gathering information. Knowing your audience is 100% specific to the training planning and, frankly, delivery. When you think about the delivery, knowing your audience, really observing how they're participating, observing who's leaning in and who's holding back. Are they holding back because they're quiet and that's how they process information and they're really thinking and considering the information? Or are they holding back because they're lost? That's different. Are they super engaged because they're picking up what you're putting down and they're really eating it up and they're really loving it? Well, that's great. Or are they really leaning in and talking because they want to show off? Or they think that by talking, they're going to sort of buffalo you, kind of trick you into thinking that they know everything when their knowledge is very shallow. Knowing your audience really means reading the room as a session is unfolding. Reading the room and sensing when the energy is dipping and you got to do something real quick to get the energy back up. Knowing when you need to slow down because the group in general is lost. Knowing when you need to push a little harder because the group actually is ahead of the agenda and they can take on some additional learning. Knowing your audience starts before the session, but it occurs during the session too. And that's why it's hard truth number 7 and separate from hard truth number 4. A little bit of Venn diagram overlap, but it's really very, very separate. Know your audience. Sometimes it's an innate sense when you're in front of the room. You just sense it. And that's a really good sixth sense to hone, having some discernment and judgment when you're delivering the training, whether you're in person or virtually. You can put things in place. So that's why that's a byproduct or a result of doing games, activities, simulations, breakouts, role plays, hands-on stuff, all group exercises, all that kind of stuff. All those things are there to facilitate the learning and make the learning more effective, but they are also chances for you to know your audience. Who's participating? Who's not? Who's struggling? Maybe you have a game where you have to assemble something or complete a procedure. And somebody who spent the whole session telling you how they totally got it and they totally understood and, oh yeah, this is great, Adam. Then you do a game where you actually have to do the thing and it's clear as day. They didn't listen to nothing. They didn't listen to nothing. Well, guess what? Now you know your audience a little bit more. You can kind of see the people who were really quiet and you weren't sure whether they were processing information or they were just zoned out, then you do a simulation, you do a role play, and they nail it, they crush it. Well, clearly they were processing and absorbing the information, they just were doing it internally. Or again, they fall apart and they clearly demonstrate that they don't know. And that's fine. That's if they don't know, they don't know. That's our job to help them know. But it's a good diagnostic tool to help you know your audience. So lots to unpack there in hard truth number 7. All right, NBT Nation, beautiful, beautiful pop up live here on a beautiful, beautiful Sunday morning. Looking forward. Going to be doing some business traveling here soon. Get out and about. Be in the classroom myself, delivering some training here for two different things. So I'm really looking forward to that. Always great lessons learned coming from that. Speaking of lessons learned, you have the hard truths of becoming a no boring trainer, which is available now at noboringtraining.com. That is 60 pages, 20 hard truths, 15 infographics, all available. All available at noboringtraining.com for less than the price of a cup of coffee. For a shameless plug, 60-page PDF, real simple read, but it's going to help you level up your training. It's going to help you to plan, build, and deliver effective training that gets results, not yawns. And it's born through my experiences. It's born through my mistakes, my failures, the things I've gotten right. I think you're going to really enjoy it, NBT Nation, and I encourage you to check it out. Again, that's available at noboringtraining.com. All right. Beautiful Sunday morning. Hard truth number 8 from the hard truths of becoming a no boring trainer. Hard truth number 8. Can you guess what it is, NBT Nation? Well, if you're following along on the screen, you can. Securing agreement around the depth of learning saves a lot of shouting later on. And if you've read The Hard Truths of Becoming No Boring Trainer, you've read this story, but I'll tell you, NBT Nation, this quick story. So I got tasked to deliver some trainings many years ago. Leader said, hey, I need you to do a training on XYZ. I said, no problem, boss. I got it. I'm on it. I'm a certified no boring trainer. I got this. So I put together, I asked some questions, got some information from that leader. What were they trying to achieve? Very, very high level, very basic. Got it. Spent the next week or so putting the training together, announced the training, clarified who was going to be on the invite list, got them in the room, did the training. Everything was awesome. Got done with the training, did a summary write-up, and presented it back to that leader. My phone starts ringing. Well, did you cover this? No. Did you talk about this? No. Did you get into this topic? No. Well, did you unravel this issue that we're having? No. Why not? Well, because that wasn't the point of the training. The point of the training was blah, blah, blah. But I wanted you to do blah, blah, blah. I thought we were doing like kind of an introduction to XYZ. No, I wanted you to do a deep dive. Well, if I was doing a deep dive, there's no way I'm doing that in a 2-hour thing, literally labeled boot camp in the title. Well, I don't know what that means. I assumed you knew I meant I wanted a full, in-depth, complete training. I had no idea you wanted. I was using words like introduction and skim the surface and wave tops. Your email with your proposal was so long, I didn't read it. Back and forth, back and forth. They were upset. I was upset. I wasted my time. They wasted their time. They didn't get the result they wanted. They were torqued at me. I was torqued at them. There was a lot of people unhappy that day, my friends. And it was my fault. It was 100% my fault as a trainer. I didn't ask the right questions. I didn't do a proper analysis. I made assumptions. I didn't create an environment where that leader understood what I was doing, and I didn't confirm that I understood what that leader really, really, truly wanted. – That's on me as the trainer. 100% on me. But that happens a lot in the corporate training world. Leaders are, I like, a lot of my social media memes across all the various social media platforms. I make fun of level managers and senior leadership and a lot of funny memes. And, oh, geez, what are people thinking? But trainers, or leaders rather, they got a tough job. They're running organizations, they're balancing all sorts of competing things. While I'm over here asking for more time for training, the safety person is asking for more time to talk about safety. The environmental person wants more time for that. The HR person wants more time for that. The field level manager wants more time for this. The marketing team wants more time for that. Like everybody and their brother needs more time, more budget, more resources, everything. And oh, by the way, that leader has to make sure the vision is aligned, everybody's moving forwards, dealing with 1,000 different issues from the clogged sink in the break room to potential legal action to regulation at the federal level, whatever. I mean, mad respect for senior leaders of an organization. I truly mean that. That is a tough job with never ending it's a never ending process of choices and decisions. And sometimes those decisions are super duper obvious. This is the right decision and clearly we're doing this. And sometimes senior leaders are choosing from two ends of a dirty stick and which end is less dirty and less messy and then getting it in my hands less muddy. And I have mad respect, honest and genuine respect for that. So, as trainers, the point of all this is that us, need to secure agreement by on the depth of learning from the get go, from the jump. And you can do it in lots of different ways. Do you just want a quick introduction? Do you want them to kind of sort of learn a few little basic skills? Or do you want them to be the new subject matter experts across the entire organization? Which one of those levels do you want? Do you want good, better, best? Do you want gold, uh, whatever, bronze, silver, gold? Do you want level 1, 2, or 3? Whatever. You got to get that figured out on the front end because that changes the nature of the training you're doing. If you're just doing a quick introduction to a topic, we could do a virtual session, we could do an explainer video, we could do a nicely written email with links to a shared folder, we could do a quick podcast episode, we could introduce that into stand-up meetings and huddles. You could do lots of different things to just quickly introduce a topic. Graphics, micro learning of all sorts, whatever. Again, that layered learning idea, right? If we're just trying to get them introduced and kind of start thinking about a topic and maybe starting to do some of the basic level skills, well, guess what? A 2-minute micro learning video ain't going to do that. They got to have time to hear the information, think about the information, use the information, practice the information, fall down and skin their knees a little bit, and then practice some more. And then now they're starting to get the hang of the basics. And then you follow that up with all the different layers afterwards. If you want full-blown subject matter expert mastery of some complicated subject that takes 2 years of field experience to learn, just by osmosis. I'll put it this way. If it takes you 2 years to learn how to do something out in the field just through trial and error and shadowing and word of mouth, you're not going to learn that in a 2-hour session in the training room. I mean, that makes zero sense on its face, right? 2 years in the field cannot be replicated in 2 hours of training. Now, could it be replicated in a lot less time than 2 years? Heck yeah, that's why you do training, right? Is to increase the efficiency, reduce that learning curve. Yes, of course, but it ain't magic. It ain't magic. So if it's a super duper complicated thing and your stakeholder wants full on subject matter expertise, A, you need more time. B, you need more layers. C, you need a lot more practice and repetition. You need a lot more content. You need a lot more resources. You need more, period. There's no shortcut. There's no easy lunch. There's no free lunch either. Speaking of lunch, it's getting late, getting towards afternoon here in USA. I'm hungry. But securing agreement around the depth of learning, you got to get all that hammered out on the front end. And that's on us as trainers. That's on us. It's part of how you plan the training so you build appropriately and ultimately deliver the right learning to achieve the outcome. I mean, this ain't rocket science. So there you have it, NBT Nation. Hard truths, becoming no boring trainer 5 through 8. Layered learning provides outstanding outcomes, but your shareholder or your stakeholder is probably going to want a magic wand. Training is not the solution to every problem. Know your audience, both before the session and certainly during it, and then securing agreement around the depth of learning on the front end. That is going to save you lots of heartburn later on. There you have it, MBT Nation. 4 more of the 20 hard truths of becoming a no boring trainer. Again, you can download the PDF version of Becoming a No Boring Trainer at nbt.com, at NBT, at noboringtraining.com. Trying to do 2 things at once here. That's where you go for all things results, not yawn. And NBT, No Boring Training, is really a approach to help you plan, build, and deliver training that gets results, not yawn. Both results during the training and ultimately results for the business, impacting those top line metrics, those metrics that keep leaders up at night. And we can do that with effective training, strategic training, you might even call it. But if you haven't read The Hard Truths of Becoming No Boring Trainer, again, it's 60-page PDF, 60 pages, 20 hard truths, 15 infographics, and loads of practical advice. I encourage you to go check it out and let me know what you think. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you can grab yours today. These hard truths really are a framework to elevate the training in your organization. At the end of the day, we want to help people grow and develop, to help them be more successful in their job roles, to be more efficient, be more productive, have more success. And it's really a pathway towards injecting energy, excellence, and alignment into your organization. So thanks for joining me here, NBT Nation. It's great to have you along. Leave me a comment if you've experienced one of these hard truths that we've covered today. If you've bumped into one of them, let me know your thoughts. Give me a little bit of feedback on how you've navigated those. And at the end of the day, I hope everybody has a great rest of your Sunday or the rest of